All right, I'm going to bring this meeting to order at 11 a.m. This is the March 20th, 2024 meeting of the California Unemployment Appeals Board, and we are now in open session. The board will accept public comment on any agenda item or any other matter under its jurisdiction. Speakers are asked to limit their testimony to approximately 5 minutes on each agenda item, any other item under its jurisdiction not listed on the agenda. The order of the agenda items may be changed to accommodate the board or the public. I'll begin with the roll call. I'll begin with myself, Michael Allen, Chair. Present. Member Kent Monning.
Present.
Member Ng.
Present.
Member Wachowski.
Here.
Great. All four of us are present at the meeting. The next item on the agenda would be approval of the minutes for February 21st, 2024. Have any of you had a chance to review the minutes, and can we get a motion for approval?
So moved.
We'll move, and we have a second by Wachowski.
Second.
So, board members, all those in favor, please designate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All right. We now have approved the minutes. With the chair report, I'll make it brief. You know, we're still working our way through the pandemic. Here it is a couple years later, and we're still dealing with our backlog, which we're making great progress on. Just for the public's information, although we only meet once monthly, the great amount of our time is spent in resolving cases at the second level. And I'm pleased to report that this month that we resolved 1,085 cases at the second level. Of those, 991 were done with our new appeals management system, and 94 were done with the legacy system. And it's my understanding that we're very close to being at the end of having legacy cases. So with the chair report, I'll just keep it to what I usually say because it's sincere, is that it's never lost on me that on every level of this organization, with our judges, with the support staff, our management staff, my fellow board members, I just so appreciate the effort and care given to these cases. Because just for the benefit of the public, one of our bywords here when we work on these cases is the effort to get them right, and to make sure that we're doing justice to the folks who come before us, whether they're claimants, employers, anyone that comes before us, trying to make sure that we're applying the law correctly to the cases before us. So that's my chair report. I'll keep it brief, and I'll turn it over to our vice chair and then to our other members for their reports.
Thank you, Chair Allen. I just wanted to touch on a couple points this month. Appreciation for the ongoing work of this agency. I was able to test out our Spanish language capacity in the portal, having done that a number of months ago as well, and it looks wonderful. Every drop-down menu that I saw is completely in Spanish, and I understand that we're currently awaiting final translations in Vietnamese. And so just thinking today what we're able to have as far as language access for our parties as compared to when I first started on the board, it's a really exciting moment, and I'm thrilled to see that. So I wanted to thank everyone for the in-the-weeds work on that. I know it's a lot of time to make sure that we're getting that done as perfectly as possible, to make sure that giving people their native language actually makes sense and that it's the accurate translations for everything. So big thanks to everyone who was working on that. And then I'd also like to thank S.J. Bach for her time working on lots of CAMS training for our board members, which we will be diving into next month, but she's been spending a lot of time on it, and it's something that will further enhance our ability to do our job as best we can. So I wanted to thank Supervising Judge Bach for her work. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to Member Ng. If you can hear me, would you like to give a report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to second the comment by our Vice Chair, Kent Monning. I really appreciate the CAMS training that we're going to do next before the next board meeting, but I also downloaded the PowerPoint materials, and I think the C in CUIAB is probably collaboration, because I know Judge Bach will be the first to say this, that the training and the comments that we receive is really the collaboration of everybody in the whole system. And she has put together an amazing document. So I wanted to express my appreciation for the collaboration. It seems that everyone that has had contact with CAMS, that their comments have been heard and incorporated, if possible, into a path forward. And so I really appreciate the collaboration on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Ng, for your comments. Member Wachowski.
Chair Allen, I will report that personally, I have not received any legacy cases in the last 4 days. And it's with a note of sadness in my heart that I report that to the rest of my board members. And knowing that we only dealt with 94 cases, that the end is near. With a note of happiness, I saw that the appellate operations has, in this last year to date, has closed 60% of our cases within 75 days, which is astonishing if you consider that last month we only closed 15% of our cases in 75 days. It's I know that you refer to the hard work behind the scenes that the appellate division does, and I think this is proof of the benefits that we're seeing from the CAM system for all the attention that our appellate judges are working. So that's my comments for this month.
Well, thank you very much.
Sad and happy comments.
We like happy comments, and we are making progress, and that's always encouraging. So the next item on the agenda is public comment, which we reserve. And do we have any members of the public here to speak?
Chair Allen, I have no hands raised for public comment at this time.
Okay. With no public comment, then what we'll do is we'll do an update on the state of the agency and field workload from our Chief Executive Director and Chief Judge, Michael Kutry. So take it away.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Allen and board members. I'll give a brief update on workload and some other developments in the field. In February, with all of our our field offices in CAMS, where they've been fully transitioned into the new system, they closed 29,474 cases across all programs. Just over 27,000 of those cases were in UI. The open inventory, as you'll notice, grew by about 920 cases in the last month to just over 81,000 cases. That is misleading. We are producing more work than we're taking in. As a result of pushing the last of the offices into CAMS, we're able to move the very newest work into open case status, and that's what you're seeing as a growing inventory. But the reality is that that's about to stop because the pipeline of cases coming in from EDD has slowed to a trickle. So grabbing those cases out of the pipeline is being done now, and so the impact of that slightly growing inventory should be reversed very quickly, probably within the next month. Just for reference, we had a high of 74,000 cases in that pipeline at one time in 2021. We had about 24,000 in the pipeline last month, and we're down to about 14,000 in the pipeline now. That is rapidly approaching normal.
Yeah, that's really encouraging.
It is.
Yeah.
So when we move those cases into registration and open status, there aren't a pile of cases filling behind them. So our open inventory will continue to decline throughout the year as intended. On the subject of moving cases around in CAMS, we moved just over 3,600 cases since the last meeting for hearing, and we moved almost 11,000 cases for processing and verification. So it is working exactly as it's intended. As a result of all of the first in, first out case processing efforts by the field offices, our case age dropped again from 109.2 days to 104.5 days. I am looking forward to either the next meeting or the meeting after when I can report under 100 days. And that's against the backdrop of the nation, which continues to grow its average case age, now at 263 days. We had a meeting with the U.S. Department of Labor yesterday here in the office. They were very encouraged by the dramatic progress in the reduction of both our backlog and our average case age. And especially against the backdrop of the national case age growing, they felt like they were doing an excellent job of equitably disposing of our cases so that people don't have to wait by virtue of a calendaring formula. So we received some kudos there, which is excellent. Also, U.S. Department of Labor related, every 3 years in normal times, they have what's called the National Appeals Review Conference in Washington, D.C. Every quarter, we're required to grade our ALJ's performances on a random sampling and report those to the U.S. Department of Labor. Every 3 years, that National Appeals Review Conference is an opportunity for all of the states and territories to gather and score each other's scoring. So we can offer refinements and improvements to the scoring process to make sure that the states are all on a level playing field in terms of evaluating their ALJ's performances. So it was intended to go forward in 2020 last, and that's been postponed each year since. But next month, we're sending Assistant Chief Hugh Harrison, who will be one of the veteran graders at the National Appeals Review Conference, and he'll be traveling to attend that on our behalf. We're not expecting any wholesale changes to national quality review in terms of new criteria, but we do expect, since it's been so long, that we'll get some feedback on things that the states could be doing better or differently. We have a big congratulations to offer to ALJ Elizabeth Manasaw Sanada out of the San Jose office. She was appointed to the Santa Clara Superior Court on March 12th.
Well, how exciting. That's great. That's wonderful.
That marks the fourth field office ALJ to reach the Superior Court in the last 3 years. So we're especially proud of that. She joined CUIAB in the crush of the pandemic workload in 2020. She was an excellent colleague and outstanding contributor to the office and the agency, so we wish her the very best.
Absolutely.
Happy to report we do not have any security events to report since the last meeting. So that concludes my report, and I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a comment. I know when I first came on as a board member a number of years ago, I was shown that list of what has to be reviewed for quality control. It was a very lengthy list and exhaustive. And has the list been changed or upgraded since then? But it was really very, very thorough. And
the last modifications to quality review were done in 2012 or 2013. So we've been operating under the same scoring guidelines since then. We've received some news that they're possibly adding a few more due process criterion, but we don't know what they'll be yet. So we don't think they'll be announced at this appeals review meeting, but possibly the next.
Thank you.
Or in between, so that they can be evaluated at the next meeting. So once that news comes in, the quality review handbook will be updated, and we'll circulate that to all the judges and supervising judges so that they can focus on those new. There'll be existing criterion, but the score emphasis on those will be changed so that there will be more due process criterion, so that you have to meet those goals absolutely in every hearing.
Well, thank you. This has been a very positive and encouraging report, but I turn it over to my colleagues if they have any questions or comments they'd like to make before we move on. Yes.
Thanks. Just wanted to thank you for the detailed report, and special thanks to tireless Assistant Chief Hugh Harrison, who continues to travel all over to do a great job. So thanks to him for going to the conference after completing all the CAMS training, traveling everywhere. That's all. Thank you.
Apparently tireless. Any of my colleagues want to chime in, or can we move on?
No questions.
Well, thank you for the report. Then yeah, go ahead. Of course, go ahead, Member Ring.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, Chief Kutri, thank you for your leadership, and as the Vice Chair indicated, you continue to do a tremendous amount of travel, and it should be noted that in the last 30 days, there have been severe weather impacts on the entire state, but especially in Chief Kutri's hometown, and not skipping a beat and continuing to do the job has my tremendous admiration. You may have mentioned it, but Chief Kutri, did you indicate that a projection as to when we will no longer see the legacy cases?
So the board appeals that are coming in now for your review are primarily coming through in the CAM system, because once they close in the CAM system in the field offices, they automatically, when they're board appealed, only go through CAMS. We don't have a hard cutoff yet. We're going to evaluate over the next month or so what the trickle of cases still remaining in legacy are before we make a decision on the hard cutoff, because that would involve then changing them from legacy and migrating them into CAMS instead of letting them naturally flow through CAMS. So I can give you a more technical explanation, given a little more time, but we don't have a hard cutoff yet, I think, to answer your question.
No, that answers my guess. I guess the inquiry, seriously, I mean, the bottom line of the inquiry is whether we should still start clicking on to the legacy cases after we do our CAMS, and as few as they might be, the answer, I guess, is yes.
Just a little longer.
I would say yes. I do it for nostalgia
Very well
purposes.
looking at those cases. One final note, you kind of gave a national perspective. I note that the unemployment rate has continued to uptick in many of California counties. Does this generally mean an increase in the UI caseload?
Generally, yes. The unemployment rate in California has been ticking up as opposed to moving up dramatically. And so far, it looks like we are tracking pre-pandemic levels very, very closely. We're within a couple of percentage points of what we were receiving in February of 2020 before the onset of the pandemic. So EDD is doing a good job of staying on top of new claims and determinations, and we're getting a very predictable amount of appeals as a result.
Thank you. That answers my question. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so we'll move the agenda. The next thing I have on our agenda is an update on the state of our appellate workload. And we have Judge Rebecca Bach here as our supervising administrative law judge for appellate operations. So take it away, Becky.
All right, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Just to add to something that was just being discussed about the legacy cases still moving forward, I noticed that today when a board member was assigned legacy case, staff notified them of that because we know people might not be checking it as much as they were before. So I thought that was a really good approach. I'm going to encourage that continue. So that might help you out a little bit. Okay, but as for my report, according to the Department of Labor numbers, we have 50%, we are to close 50% of our cases in 45 days and 80% of our cases in 75 days to meet the guidelines. Last month, February, we closed 8.1% of our cases in 45 days, bringing our year total to 39.1. And we closed 15.4% of our cases in 75 days, bringing our year total to 60.1 thus far, as you know, as Member Wachowski already mentioned it. But the March is going to be the end of the year, and then we're going to start a fresh reporting year on April 1st. Currently, our case aging is 54.4. The Department of Labor guidelines is 40. And so I will note that you might recall that over the last few months, we had a peak in case aging that is, as you can see, being resolved. And I believe the handling of that, it created a slight or a inverse peak, if you will, in the younger cases, the Department of Labor numbers. But I can tell you already, looking at the numbers today, what they appear they're going to be, it seems like we're moving in the right direction and that we're going to be in really good footing starting the new reporting year, April 1st. So it's great during the high caseload time that we've set ourselves up for future success. Let me see. The other thing I wanted to mention was that we now have every single appellate operations administrative law judge, including retired annuitants and anybody that is on loan, working in the appeals management system. So that is a big deal. Last month I said we were close, and this month we are there. So that's exciting news for you, and also reflective in how you're seeing more cases in the appeals management system. And with that, that's on my report, but I'd be happy to respond to any questions.
Well, Judge Bach, before I turn it over to my colleagues for any questions they might have, I just want to express my appreciation for all the good work you do, and also being available to us to answer our questions, encouragement, working through the CAM system, and also I know that you're always available to our appellate judges as well, and to anyone who has a question. So I just want to express my personal appreciation, but I'm sure it's shared by the board. And having said that, I'll turn it over to my colleagues.
Thank you. Thank you, S.J. Bach, for, as I mentioned before, all your work on the CAMS training. I know you spent a lot of time on that. And I just wanted to also recognize, as you've mentioned, the AOALJs. They've really embraced CAMS very positively. I think it's challenging when you have worked for a long time in one system and you have to change everything. But it's nice to have everyone on there, and I just wanted to give them kudos for tackling it positively and working collaboratively, even when there's things that we're still learning about CAMS. So just thanks to the AOALJs for all their work.
Thank you. Member Ng, any comments?
Nothing other than to reiterate, thank you for that. If any of you looked at it, just an incredible amassing of the PowerPoint bullet points, and looking forward to the training. And also, thanks again for the virtually instantaneous response to our questions as we go through the cases. As you know, we try to complete that portion of that case so we can go on to the next one. And many times I posted a question, and almost before I enter the last keystroke, I get a response back from you. That is very, very much appreciated. No further comments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And Member Wachowski.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Allen. I look forward to the training, and I did receive the outline, and will do my very best to adhere to the minimization of emails that I may generate to our appellate division, although sometimes I like my little, I get entertained by my own little comments. I'll try to refrain myself going forward to only focus on serious legal questions that I may have on the decision.
Understood. Thank you. We'll move on with our agenda. We'll go to an update on the state of our information technology branch with Jefferson Willoughby, Chief Information Officer. Take it away, Jefferson.
Good morning, Chair Allen, members of the board. First, I'd like to thank Chief Kutry for delivering my report spectacularly last month. And it is another brief update today. As reported, we continue to engage our partners at the Department of Technology in the stabilization effort to deliver kind of critical document handling and generation functionality, scheduling improvements, and of course, rolling the Office of Tax Appeals into CAMS. The IT staff and business experts remain kind of heads down, working on a lot of things, again, that don't see the light of day from a user interface perspective, really to try and deliver the most to the organization as quickly as possible. We're working with outside translation services right now to deliver the different languages. And as you mentioned, Vice Chair Ken Monning, Vietnamese looks to be on track from our testing to be the next language to launch. And I think by the time we meet next, I should have a more comprehensive blocking out of kind of dates when that will happen. On a closing note, a reminder that we'll always have things to work on. That's kind of the good news in IT. We call this a backlog or technical debt, if you will, because we continue to listen to folks in the organization about what they would like to see, how things could be different or improved within the system. So that list always exists. We work with our IT governance team, which is comprised of business leaders like Assistant Chief Harrison and SALJ Bach, to take that list and prioritize it so that we can get, again, sort of the most bang for our buck out of the work that we're doing in a timely fashion. And I'll just say that the spirit of continuous improvement is the torch that IT uses to light our way, because we recognize that cycle is one that is continuous and should never end, because then we've reached perfection. I hope to get there. I'm not sure we will. But we value the input from all of the folks in the business who send us their commentary, and just know that it is not forgotten. It does not disappear into the ether. It gets prioritized, and we take the highest value things to the business, and we work on those first. So I'd just like to comment that that's something we know about, and it does not, in fact, disappear. That's my very short report for this month.
No, I thank you. And I've always been dubious about the word perfection anyway. So,
Have goals.
yes, you can have goals and aspirations. So I have no questions. So I'll just turn it over to my colleagues.
Thank you, Chair Allen. I just wanted, I don't know if we had the chance to appreciate the most recent enhancement that the board members are using. I think it happened right before the last board meeting possibly, but I just wanted to give my big thanks to your whole team because it has made my work, I think, a lot easier, the new enhancements that we have. So it's been fantastic and it is so helpful in our day-to-day work. And I just wanted to thank them for that.
Member Ring, any comments?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief Willoughby, again, kudos and thanks to the kudos to your team and thanks for the updates. Your presence was noted and you were sorely missed. And yes, there was a very good report given. I noted that we frequently mention the Department of Technology that's been very critical in onboarding CAMs, I believe. Is that a staff allocation? Is that the continuance of their assistance and great assistance? Is that continuing on based on need, or is it based on budget, or both?
It is budget based. So, and it is not direct staff. It is a vendor appointment or a vendor assignment that went out for quote effectively to try and get the most important things to the business delivered. And that was at that time. Of course, we can constantly look at that list of priorities and the things that we would like to have delivered. So that's a living list, but that stabilization engagement will be winding down here in the not too distant future. And we'll be using internal staff to solve problems, and they're doing that today. So if we think about that living list of things that will be worked upon, our staff are working on some of that directly today, and the folks who have been engaged through the Department of Technology's stabilization funding are working on some other parts. We hope to sort of meet somewhere in the middle, and when their engagement ends, it will all be our staff.
So just to follow up on that, so it's refreshing to know that that our internal staff is also being trained at the same time to take over some of those tasks. So I guess my question is, because the department's assistance has been so valuable, we will know at a certain point. So let's say we still need them 6 months from now or a year from now. Is there adequate, I'd say 6 months from now, because within our year, is there adequate funding moving forward for that allocation?
We will always take it if it's offered, but there is an end to that funding mechanism that we're in right now. So it would need to be a new effort to request funding to extend the current stabilization block grant that we've been given.
Yeah, someone once said that technology is like that never-ending cup of coffee. You're always going to need it, and it's something that you can't do without. Anyway, thank you. I appreciate that. And again, kudos to your staff and the Department of Technology and everyone involved with onboarding CAMs.
Thank you, Member Ring. Member Wachowski.
As Vice Chair Kent Monning alluded to, the enhancements on the case appeals management system, I'm looking forward to the training. I'm particularly delighted to move beyond my current situation where I have two cases that are related, and I open one and I read it and I close it, and to one day be able to have two screens opened on the cases and toggle back and forth between them as I deliberate my decision. So thank you for that enhancement, which I haven't been able to use yet, but look forward to it.
Are there any further questions before we move on from the agenda? I don't see any, so we'll move the agenda. We'll go to an update on Administrative Services branch with Robert Silva, our Chief Administrative Services Officer. Take it away, Bobby.
Thank you, Chair Allen. And good morning, everybody. I have a very brief report, all surrounding support staff information, department-wide support staff. Following the trend from the last board meeting, over the last 4 weeks, we have only hired one additional support staff at CUIAB, and that's in our Oxnard Office of Appeals, and they start next week. Due to some recent attrition in field operations over the last 4 weeks, we have been able to convert 2 limited term employees into permanent full-time positions. And we were also able to promote an office technician to a management services technician position. We currently have 20 recruitments pending. Of those, 4 are currently in the name clearance process. So if all goes well, they'll hopefully come aboard in the approaching weeks. So I alluded to attrition. So I wanted to report that for the state fiscal year 23-24, so far we have only hired 18 support staff statewide, but that's counterbalanced by the fact that we have also had an attrition of 25 support staff the current fiscal year. Last fiscal year, we had a total attrition of 31 positions and total hiring of 32 support positions, so we essentially broke even at the end of last fiscal year. The current numbers, if you were to straight line project them, we're looking to have similar attrition to last year, 31, 32 positions, but only a hiring of a total of about 24 for the current fiscal year. It's difficult to project when attritions are going to happen, but even though we're currently projecting to perhaps have more support staff attrition than hires, we obviously have the use of overtime to mitigate any specific backlogs we have in appellate or field operations. And we also have the fact, as Chief Kutry alluded to, that we've been, the general overall backlog has been declining as we proceed through this fiscal year. So I'm personally not terribly concerned about this balance of attrition versus hiring, and all the offices continue their recruitment efforts as I speak here today. Lastly, the support staff update. Between field operations and appellate, we employ a total of 10 seasonal clerks here at CUIAB. The new SEIU agreement with the state changes the way in which seasonal clerks can be scheduled. We previously could schedule them for 1,500 hours in any calendar year. The new agreement states that effective January 1st of this year, we can now schedule seasonal clerks for no more than 1,500 hours in a 12 consecutive month period. CUIAB management has been advised of this change, and I've been working with the legal support supervisors in AO and FO, appellate and field operations, on how that impacts their respective seasonal clerks in their offices. So everyone's on board with how we're going to proceed moving forward. I'm happy to take any questions. That's the end of my report.
Yeah, I have no questions other than, while listening to the reports today of the staff, it's just that for someone who's been here quite a while through an economic collapse of that we had in the country, and then a worldwide public health disaster that we've worked our way through. One of the things that I've always felt is that perseverance furthers, and that to persevere when it seems hopeless is one of the gifts that you can give to yourself in terms of when you're working with other people, that if you keep on working through something, eventually you start seeing all the proverbial light of the tunnel. It's not a locomotive coming towards you. It's actually things getting better. And so, just today, just the general tenor of what we're hearing from our reports, I definitely have that feeling that now that we're really I remember meetings like last year when we were talking about baling wire and keeping the agency together to survive. And it's just very encouraging to me what I'm hearing from all of you. And before I turn it over to questions from my colleagues, I just have one question for any of you because it didn't come up. But one of our primary concerns as board members is the safety of the staff. And so I'm assuming that because there was no report on any security concerns, there was no security issues that needed to be brought up, that everything is fine.
That's correct.
Okay. I wanted to ask that question. Having made asking my questions, I'll turn it over to our vice chair.
Thank you. No questions, just thank you for the detailed report. Appreciate it.
No questions.
No questions from Member Wachowski. Member Rang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief Silva, thank you for your report. As we know, as a department, we're going to be impacted by the state budget. I think when we started the conversation about the shortfall, it was at 37 billion, and I'm seeing that it's now closer to 73 billion. Which figure are we going to be, from your view and talking with how our budget is decided, which figure is closer to that which will have the impact on our department?
Between the 37 and the 73 billion that you mentioned? Yeah. When I had reported at a board meeting a few months ago, at the time, it was in the 68 billion, I want to say, and I think it is, most reports now up to 72, 73 billion is what they're currently looking at as a figure. The real impact to us being that departments seeking budget change proposals through the May revision process, many of them aren't going to be receiving any additional funding. But we are fortunately in a position where, based on the October revise of the budget, the previous October revise, we're in a really good space as far as having enough funding as we enter next fiscal year for our projected workload.
Thank you. I think you may be the only person in Sacramento able to say that. Much appreciated. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. I would ask our board counsel, Mark Wusam. Mark, is there any items that we need to discuss in closed session today?
Thank you, Chair Allen. We do not.
Okay. With that, then I will conclude this meeting and I will declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you.